Hey, folks, welcome to Rolling Start, the American F1 podcast. Today, we have a gem today, James, a legend in the F1 broadcasting world. We're sitting down with a voice every true Formula One fan knows, respects, and I would dare say loves. For more than a decade, he has been the frontline storyteller for one of the fastest sports on Earth. Since 2012, he's anchored Sky Sports F1 coverage, guiding fans through title deciders, heartbreaks, controversies, and historic wins. He's interviewed the legends. He's absorbed the pressure of live broadcast to a global audience and helped define how literally millions of F1 fans experience this modern era of the sport. Today, we talk to the man behind the mic about the craft of broadcasting at 200 miles an hour, the evolution of the sport, the stories that stay with him, and the new era of Formula One we are stepping into. This is Rolling Start, and our guest today is the one, the only, Simon Lazenby. Simon, welcome to the show.
Guys, thank that. You know what? That is the nicest intro anyone's ever done for me. I don't get that from Crofty when I'm doing the Sky F1 podcast. He never says nice things like that. It's just not,
Simon,
I do this every week.
Simon, we have so much love and respect for you. It's our goal to make our guests just feel so embraced on this show. So, dude, it's so great to have you on the show.
Well, mate, it's a pleasure to be on here. So thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
Yeah, it's not every day we get someone on the show that has witnessed the Vettel era, has seen Hamilton's Mercedes dominance, has watched Verstappen's rise, Red Bull's civil wars, and also the Netflix boom of Drive to Survive. Like, Simon's been through it all.
Yeah. I mean, and actually, I have to say, the difference that Drive to Survive has made to our viewing figures, but just to the global interest in the sport. I've been... Might not look it, but I've been at Sky for this is my 28th year at Sky, and this will be our 15th year going out on the road. And I've been involved in quite a few sports, but I've never seen anything grow exponentially like Formula One has since Drive to Survive. And now it's got a foothold in America. Now I'm speaking to you guys across in LA. That wouldn't have happened sort of 7 or 8 years ago, but you can put it down to that. And therefore, it's been a real pleasure to be involved in something that is just so popular and so global now.
Yeah, I mean, it's up and to the right as far as the popularity of the sport. And I think I want to just sit there for a second. How has that been for you, for the Sky team, to kind of, again, you're not like along for the ride, but there's momentum there that's real. And I'm going to pause for a second. Do we need to unlink something? We're good. Okay. Let me ask that question again.
Yeah.
I want to pause there for a second around this Drive to Survive momentum that has been happening in F1. How has that been for you and the other members of the Sky Sports team to kind of witness that, to be part of that, to see the behind the scenes of that? What has that been like for you all to see the before and the after of that?
It's a lot busier in the paddock. That's for sure. Bernie used to keep a very tight rein on the amount of people that could go into the paddock. But nowadays, there's so many sponsors. Everybody wants to have a little look, literally under the bonnet of what's going on, and therefore you can feel it. Actually, it's a much better atmosphere in the paddock now because there's so many people in there, and you see it where you go from place to place. Like, admittedly, it was a fairly drunken guy, but I remember walking down Austin High Street and a bloke stopped me and he went, "Hey, Simon." I'm like, what's going on? So it's definitely, it's definitely grown, outside of what we thought was our own little fiefdom, if you like, of the UK and Ireland for Sky F1, because we broadcast to something like 80 odd countries around the world now. You just notice it, and therefore it's a global base that we're broadcasting to, and we have to be quite careful of that as well.
Yeah. Speaking about that, like taking a step back, you've been obviously 15 years on the road. How did you get into Formula One? Like, how did you transition into that world? Was it something that you were passionate about, or did you kind of stumble into it? How did it happen?
So I could take you all the way back if you want. I mean, at university, I studied natural sciences, which was basically biology, and I was cutting up dogfish, and I was doing stuff like that. Right?
Yes.
And then I went from there into trading. Was absolutely terrible commodity trader, and my sister was working in TV, having a load of fun. And I had a couple of people that were working at Sky because it was quite a young company then. And I said, look, it'd be great to get some work experience. So I started off making the teas and coffees for the rugby union department over here at Sky, and then got an opportunity to do some reporting. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'd quite like to give presenting a go. So I sort of walked into the boss's office and said, can I have a go? And he kind of looked me up and down like, what? He's got, got the kahunas to walk in here. So they gave me a screen test. I had like probably 30 minutes of auto cue training. And then I was sat in an edit suite one day with this editor called Murat. I remember it very well. I got the phone call from the Scottish head of Sky Sports at the time. And he goes, get home, son. Get your suit. You're on this evening. In his broad Scottish accent. So I sort of drove home in my
love that.
My 1 liter car and got back around and did it. And I sort of, I talked out loud for a few hours and thankfully I'm still doing it. But I was in rugby, and then my boss on rugby got the opportunity to move across to F1 when we got the rights in 2012. And I was like, I've got to have a part of that because yes, I grew up with sort of Senna and Prost and Mansell. But also Damon Hill. My company made a film about Damon recently, which it's not out actually, and we've not sold it in the States yet. But they were my kind of heroes growing up from Formula One. It was great to work with Damon when we moved across, and just to be part of this unbelievable global sport. I love it.
Incredible. Can you talk about the film with Hill? You said it hasn't come out in the States yet, but can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it's about Damon's life story, really. He won the world championship in 1996, but his father, Graham, was obviously a double world champion. And there were kind of quite eerie parallels between their careers. So Jim Clark died when he was a teammate of Graham Hill, and he quite literally had to pick up the pieces from that and the team back in the day in the late 60s when it was so treacherous. And then in 1975, Damon was watching TV at home by himself, and there was a news flash on the TV, and it was basically the news that his dad had been killed in a plane crash. But because he was piloting 5 others and the papers weren't all correct on the insurance, the Hill family lost everything. So he had to build back up from there, and then emulated what his father did and became world champion. So it's got a nice happy ending in 1996, but my God, it just shows you like the determination of Damon to go through all that really and come out the other side. I just think it's just one of the great stories in the history of Formula One. And I think for those that are perhaps new to it, post Drive to Survive, come back when it comes out in the States. I'll send you a viewing copy, lads, and you can have a little look at that one.
That's amazing, and that's one of the things that we absolutely love about Formula One. It's the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when I think about you guys as presenters, broadcasters, you take data, you take all of what's happening in really the paddock and everything, and you present the story of Formula One. You've been doing this for over 20 years now. How do you prepare? We're a brand new season. How do you go in and go, I need to connect what's going on in the paddock to what people want to hear and what they need to hear at home?
It's a great question, James. It's this year more than ever. It's about preparation, because this is the biggest rule change that I've seen in my time in Formula One. I went through it in 2014 when the hybrids came in, 2022 when it was to ground effect. But this is aero, this is engine, this is absolutely new formula. Now, moved to 100% sustainable fuels as well, but this is all about electrical management now. That's what the story of this season is going to be all about, and you can see it from testing. And I think there's a lot more questions than there are answers, but I want everyone to sort of stay positive about what there could be. There's going to be an unbelievable development war this year. So after the end of the rule set last year, they were scrapping over hundredths right? Now they're going to be scrapping over tenths. Upgrades are going to be hugely important.
Right.
And it's just about, getting to terms or getting up to speed with the terminology as well. There's things like, super clipping. We've got rid of, the MGUH. You need
Yes,
to understand
exactly.
where they're going to be harvesting, how they're going to be harvesting, how they're going to be deploying, what's going to go on with the starts, what's going to go on with the compression ratio drama that seems to be, the forefront of everyone's talk ahead of the season. So there's a lot to digest. There's a lot to prepare for. But that's what I love about this sport, is that it's always changing. It's always morphing into something that that is different from what went before, because it's always a balance between the show and the technology. And I think this stuff is important technologically to get right as we try and move towards sustainability. So it's enticed Audi into it, Cadillac, Honda back into it. So there's a lot of positives. Now it's down to the engineers to be clever again.
Wow. So many thoughts there. I mean, I think you just hit on this incredible reality of it's sport, and any sport is entertainment, right? Like the world is showing up because of the story, because of the entertainment value, but it is a highly technical entertainment mode, right? Like a lot of things have to go right.
Yes.
And a lot of things can go wrong that impact the experience of the viewer, the experience of the fan. And so as we're looking into the new season with all of these changes on the back end that will impact that entertainment part of this sport, are there any like pauses or anything that's standing out to you or to other folks in the world to be like, oh, that's going to be interesting as far as how this technical piece shows up on track in entertainment value? Is there anything that's like standing out to you or like a flag for you? Like, wow, that's going to be interesting to see that on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you saw it from testing, right? So when Fernando Alonso comes out, look, there is not an edict, but everyone wants to be positive about this rule set because we've got this new audience, and we want to retain that audience, and we want to build on that audience, and we do that as storytellers. Now, Max and Lewis and Fernando have been slightly critical after that first week of testing, or second week, depending on what you consider happened in Barcelona. And you don't necessarily want to hear them saying negative things about it, but they are the ones that they're entitled to their opinion, right? They are the ones that are driving these cars. And when Fernando Alonso is saying, through turn 12, the team chef could be driving it through turn 12 in Bahrain because it's at 200 kph rather than 260, because they're having to manage the energy through the lap. That's the flag at the moment. But when you do get a regulation change like this, the engineers always seem to find a way to improve the lap times, race on race, year on year. Yes. And it's just different and it's new. And I think Crofty and Martin and Anthony and Bernie and those in commentary, I think the first thing will be, how do we explain this to an audience in the simplest terms as we can to retain their interest and understand, look, everything's going to be okay. This is just the inevitable teething problems of a new set of regulations. So I think that's what we've got to keep an eye out for to start with. I hope it's, more positive than negative, because that's what we're all aiming towards, is to build the future of this great sport.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And there's always another side to it, right? Because, in previous regulations, the complaint was DRS wasn't long enough. And, obviously DRS has gone away, even though it looks like it's still there. It's active aero now. And, but then they also have the button that they can use for the entire lap. And so what does that say for racing moving forward is like, there's always a push and a pull with these things. And so, and I think you're 100% right. Regulation changes are, it's like watching like a WWE wrestling match for the first year. Like it's pure chaos. Like you have no idea what's going to go on and what's going to happen next. And it's very exciting for the fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I want to switch into 2025. Simon, one of the things that I most respect about you is, unlike some other pundits, you don't plant a flag in who's the greatest of all time. You tend to go based off of era dominance, the cars. I mean, my favorite example is, you're not just a fan of Schumacher, you're also a fan of the story of Ferrari building back up during that time as well. How do you look at the Max dominance era? How do you look at Lando winning his first championship? Like, what were you thinking in those moments? Are you going, oh, I have another era on my hands now?
I think because it was the end of a set of regulations, you were like, this is probably, it might be both Lando and Oscar's only chance of winning a title in their time, because things kind of, they do change. And I think we were already thinking that the works teams, for example, they've had longer than some of the customer teams as we move into this next cycle of regulations, of being to understand how the energy is deployed and it's harvested. So they might have early season advantage. And we look at Ferrari, we look at Mercedes, we look at Red Bull, right? From what's gone before to what's gone now, they all look strong. And I think that those three, I'm hoping that no one is miles ahead of somebody else. But just to go back to 2025, I think it was good to see how McLaren did something that I'd not witnessed in my 14 years of doing this before then, which was how quickly they developed to go from a car that was tugging around at the back to then taking on Max. That was some effort. And what you have to do is you have to doff your cap to Zach and to Andrea and, of course, to Rob Marshall about, all of the key players there. They got all the elements in harmony and ticking along. And that starts from Zach at the very top being unbelievable at pulling in the sponsors. But you don't do that unless the car's improving. But he was brilliant at that. And they've got like the most sponsors on the grid. They are absolutely rocking and rolling in the technical side of things. So I just thought it was an unbelievable effort to overhaul the dominance of Max and Red Bull for one season. Also, it gave us a different narrative. And I think that, periods of domination are okay, but people get bored of that, right? They want to see a change in winner. And believe me, I do not care who it is, because it's like, whilst I might care whether England win at football, when you're involved in a sport, in my role, I do not have favourites. You don't.
Yeah.
What I really thrive on is just a great story. And I think that's what the sports needs. It needs to keep building and building these great stories. And for that to happen, we want close racing.
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about papaya rules. So that was obviously a huge storyline last year. And Max applied immense pressure to papaya rules. And we saw how one driver, not even with the best car, but with a car that he could win with, brought papaya rules to the breaking point, to where he almost made like one of the greatest comebacks of all time, right? So looking into 2026, if we're seeing other teams that are looking to be competitive, do you think papaya rules can withstand an assault from multiple teams as opposed to just a single driver? Can they stand up? Can they hold firm?
There's an analogy I could make here between the current England Test cricket team, but it might not make any sense to US.
I don't think it's going to land, Simon.
we just got stuffed.
Go for it, Simon.
Okay, we just got stuffed, basically, our cricket team, by Australia down under, and it's because we were super aggressive in the long form of the game, right? And it got shown up. It didn't work, and I think what they need to do is they just need to adapt their tactics a little bit, because you're quite right. If there are multiple people going at them, then at some point they would have to switch, I think, to a 1-2 earlier in the season. They're just going to have to be pragmatic and do what the situation allows. Now, I think Andrea and Zach have got a very kind of honourable way, an honourable way of going racing, and that they don't want to favour one of their drivers. They want to give them both the opportunity until there comes a point where they have to protect them. And we discussed this a lot at the end of last year. That it was almost weekly. We were coming back to the topic. Is it now? Right. Does he need to prioritise now? And they held their nerve. but they had a big enough advantage. And I think they kind of, I know it came down to the wire, but they really did, feel that was the right thing that they were doing. There's a debate for it either side, but I think ultimately it will just come down to circumstance.
Man. Yeah. If they have to change based on the fact that the entire field is coming to them, it will be an interesting way to see the 2026 season unfold. I want to talk about the last thing about 2025 is so Lewis Hamilton's shift to Ferrari, arguably one of the biggest contract changes in the history of Formula One. In the past, he is statistically one of the greatest of all time. Obviously, you can't ignore 7 titles over multiple eras. There's immense respect for just the amount of poles, wins, all of what he's done. Not only that, he has impact beyond racing, global profile, diversity. A large chunk of F1's growth can be obviously attributed to Sir Lewis Hamilton, and I think there's something beautiful and respectable about that. However, it seems to us that his move to Ferrari hasn't gone as it was expected. What do you think the future holds for Lewis at Ferrari?
So, he produced this dossier, didn't he, last year, that he gave to the senior management at Ferrari, which was basically, look, this is what I assume what it consisted of. You've got your Mercedes hat on there, was him saying, this is what I learned from, winning that amount of titles with Mercedes and what probably should have been one more, let's face it. And I think he just wants that application, wants to see that application from Fred and the team, because they have had years of underachievement, right?
Yeah.
It's almost 2 decades now since they won a championship. And for the Tifosi, that's just not good enough. So he wanted to change it. There've been personnel changes, obviously new race engineer. And I think he just wants to see that application of what he learned at Mercedes across the board. And I think Fred has a great relationship with him, as he does with Charles. They've got 2 good races there. He didn't have the car underneath him last year. He was also disappointing in qualifying. I think if, everyone's saying it's his Achilles heel now, and that's the first thing that goes with age. But let's just see what goes on this year, because he didn't start the Bahrain test thinking that this was a nice car to drive. Then after day 2, they got the upgrades, didn't they? Got a new front wing, a new floor, new diffuser, I think. And then all of a sudden, he puts down what's effectively the fastest race simulation. And it looks good. And Charles not too far off him, and it's flipped. So I hope for the sake of it, they get off to a good start. I hope they don't do a Ferrari, which I suppose in years gone by is kind of, managing to make a bit of a hash of it.
Yeah.
But, that's the narrative that is so exciting about Ferrari itself, isn't it? Because Schumacher went there and turned it with Ross Brawn and Jean Todt and everybody into an absolute dynasty. And I just wonder whether he's got one more shot at that, and that's why he went there.
So that's interesting. Do you feel like the culture would allow for a major shift like that? See, when I look at Ferrari, it's almost like that that guy. I'm going to use an American example now. It's like the guy who played football in high school and he still wears his Letterman jacket, but he's been having a couple beers down at the club, and he's now a little overweight and everything. There is essentially a giant cruise ship, and you can't just flip a ship like that 180 degrees. You got to make small incremental changes. But then I look at a McLaren who, like you said, were garbage. They were absolutely trash, and then dominant, almost you couldn't comprehend how good they were.
Different
Can
cultures,
Ferrari still do that, or do you feel like they're weighting against the weight of historical success?
No, I think that the pressure on Ferrari is bigger than it is on any other team, just because it's the Italian national team, and they're a very passionate fan base. And they went through a period of instability where they were, was it like 14 principals in 5 seasons?
My goodness.
They were just a mess. And they're giving, or I think they're going to give, well, I wonder actually. It depends on the start they get off to this year, but you'd think that they got the right man in place in terms of Fred. That's what they believe was the right man in place. And now it's about a paradigm shift. How much is he able to change the Ferrari mentality to win at all costs, win the development war? Just a nice little start on this, to point it out, is actually on starts, right? So it was Fred Vasseur, who I think it was halfway through last season, identified there could be this problem whereby you need to rev, because there's no MGUH now, right? They need to rev their engines to spin up the turbo to get off the line very quickly. Fred saw this, and by the looks of things, they have made the changes to their engine to have addressed that. Now that's a good little sign, a good little early sign that, okay, we're ahead of the curve here. We spotted this before anybody else. And, feather in his cap. Let's see if it translates into results on the track. But at the moment, that does look like somewhere that Ferrari had also got ahead of the game.
It's awesome. Any other 2025 questions for you? We have the master of Formula One on.
No, I want to go to 2026. Let's go to 2026. Okay, preseason. We just came through testing. What are some of the storylines that are percolating to the top for you? Who's winning? Who's losing? Obviously, it's testing. Obviously, everyone's on different racing programs. It's hard to kind of apples to apples comparison. But what are the stories and the threads that you're pulling after testing?
Did you see Lawrence Stroll leaving the paddock at the end of day 3? I don't know if you saw Ted's notebook, but he had a face like thunder. And I think that's
so much.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that's the story of testing. The story of testing is that the dream team was assembled, right? Adrian Newey at the helm. They had Andy Cowell. They moved him aside. They've got Enrico Cardile from Ferrari. They've got the new factory up and running. They've got the new wind tunnel up and running. Everything looks best in class. And they got a car that Lance Stroll said was 4 seconds off the pace.
Right.
Like it came out the box and everyone went, oh, that's a nice design. That's different from everybody else. But it doesn't care what it looks like. It'll be down now to see how Adrian and the team can turn that around. And I wonder how quickly they can. But, he is the greatest designer in history. We talk about it. It's obvious. It's a cliche, but he's won more titles than anybody. And he'll just apply himself. And in Fernando, I think he's got still a master who'll be really, really clever with the way that he can, what's the right word? The way he can kind of smooth over the new regulations, get on top of those, get ahead of the other drivers. But unless he's got the car underneath him to do that, it's going to be very difficult. So for me, that is the big story of testing and will continue to be a massive story throughout 2026. How quickly can they catch up?
Can I ask you a quick follow-up? So sorry.
No, go for it.
So it's interesting because you're right. Like it was like the Avengers assembled at Aston, and everyone just had such high expectations.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Red Bull, with their partnership with Ford last year, like we don't know this. Fingers crossed. We're not expecting to be really competitive, and coming out of testing, they're looking really strong. So, what are you seeing in Red Bull and how they're looking after testing as well?
They're looking unbelievable. They really are looking like they've got the best energy recovery system of the lot. And that we know how hugely important that is. And that is, that's Toto saying, look, that's one thing that also emerged from testing is that nobody wants to give themselves the favorites tag, right? Everyone wants to play it down. Everyone
lower expectations.
Passing the buck and lowering expectations. But you do have to come back and say, if you're Christian Horner and you're looking from outside to in now, after, getting the sack, this was his baby. He wanted to be a works team with a works engine. And he made some unbelievable hires. You know, he made a lot of hires. There's a brain drain from HPP, right? From Mercedes HPP across to Red Bull powertrains. Think of Ben Hodgkinson, who's the head of sort of mechanical engineering. He was at HPP. He's gone over there and he was aware of this little trick that Mercedes were doing with the engine, with the compression ratio, for example. And they've applied it. They're using that knowledge. They built a great team, and those with prior knowledge of what it took to win, to apply to the 2026 set of regulations. And, you know, if you're Max Verstappen, you might be thinking that the car at the moment is not how you'd like to drive it. But I guarantee you, if he wins in Australia, he might change his mind. He's like, you know, come on, Max. Yeah, you know, it is what it is. But if you're winning still, then I think that might soon. But he's a realist, Max, as well. I mean, he's the kind of guy. He's old school. He'll just tell it as it is. He just wants to be going flat out. But he might just have to adapt for a bit.
Yeah. That's interesting. Do you find that that's a bigger surprise to you that Red Bull Powertrains is as successful as it is, or that Audi comes on this year? And I mean, I don't know if I'm the only one that's amazed at how well they seem to be doing from the outside looking in.
Yeah. I mean, I think both Audi and Cadillac, again, you've just got to go, wow. Right? Yes. They've come to start from where they are. I mean, Audi have had more of a head start, obviously, than Cadillac have. But to come out and to be reliable throughout Bahrain testing, to know that they've got a decent starting point, I'm really impressed with both of those teams. And I think, again, that will be one of the stories of the year. Let's just see, you know, how they're going to cope with the development war. I think the thing with a fresh team and a fresh startup team is that, number one, you've got to get all the equipment in place. You've got to get, you know, do what Aston Martin have done. That takes time. It takes energy, and it takes a lot of money. But then you've also got to attract the best people, and that also takes time. And let's just go back to how James Vowles set about doing things with Williams. Right? He set about working out what was going wrong at Grove, working out systematically what was failing them, and then started to try to attract the talent. And therefore, that's why he said, we're not going to win until 2027, I think is what he said. You know, they've had a slow start this year. It may be that he has to recalibrate his calculations. But, you know, these things, the conveyor belt moves on. And if you're at the front of the conveyor belt, it is still really difficult to catch up with those because they're also developing. They're also getting faster and faster all the time. So, yeah, there's some huge challenges ahead. But isn't it great to have, you know, 11th team, you know, an American team as well in Cadillac? You know, I love this Cadillac versus sort of Ford rivalry, which has been around in NASCAR and Le Mans over the years, and now it's spilling over into Formula One.
It's pretty wild to see an 11th team and the 11th team being an American team. It feels right to us for obvious reasons.
I mean, they unveiled their livery during the Super Bowl.
And got sued by Michael Bay in the same day. So I'm like, yes, we're officially the American team. I was like, there's new cars, new liveries, lawsuits.
Haas over here is like, hey, guys, we've been here for a while. We're like, no, move aside. Ford, Cadillac, come on in.
I know. Poor Gene is like, what the heck? I've been here for years.
I know.
It's so good.
Well, you got to pay. You got to pay for the advertising space at a Super Bowl, don't you? So,
yes.
You know, Gene, get your hands in your pockets for next year.
Yeah. I think Gene's had his hands in his pockets for a few years.
Yeah.
Hey, you brought up something interesting. So Cadillac's coming. They're here. And we've got Audi here. Obviously, Cadillac coming in as a team, not their own engine provider. Audi coming in with some historical taking over a team, but they are their own engine provider now, which is impressive in and of itself. And then you mentioned the wonderful Williams.
Yeah.
Ben and I, we're Americans, so we love the underdog. So when Jimmy V went over there, we were so excited. We loved Jimmy V. We loved how he was doing it. And, you know, we were really expectant because they bought, you know, at now a 2-year-old chassis into the 2025 season because they were saying we're focused on 2026. They performed so well last year. They surprised, I think, most people. Brought Carlos over, and then they're late in 2026. What do you feel like we know what the press releases are saying. What's your take on what's happening within Williams? How does this set them up for the 2026 season?
You could look at it after Barcelona and you could say, that does not look good for them. But they came in, they pumped out the most laps, I think, didn't they, in that test in Bahrain?
A lot.
They're on the front. They're on the front foot now, or they're beginning to get into, not on the front foot, but they're sort of, I suppose, made up for their deficiencies early on. But fifth is their baseline. Now that's we got to there. Anything less than that is a step backwards for them. Yeah, I think he's put the process in. He's a very, very smart man. And I go back to what Lewis has done, with Ferrari, taking all of that knowledge from his time during the turbo hybrid era with them across to Ferrari and trying to implement that to that team. I think it's the same with James. But obviously there are going to be times where it's not plain sailing. It's an extremely complicated sport. And, it just takes one element of the system not to be functioning correctly, and you might, you're putting yourself behind everybody else, behind the 8 ball. So that's what's happened here. Something, systematically has probably inhibited them from getting to where they would have liked in Barcelona to start with, but now they're playing catch up. But probably not as much catch up as Aston Martin, for example.
Yeah, just going back to Aston quickly, I do think expectations were so high with what they had assembled, and now Aston is really, dare I say, in an underdog position, and Williams has kind of eclipsed them. Like Williams has actually made the larger step. Williams has put in the work, and Aston is now on that back foot. Again, they've got the heavyweight, they've got the right people, they've got the money. It's going to be an interesting year to see if they can win that development war, if they can come back and compete. Would you say, who is Aston competing with this year? Are they trying to compete with Williams? Like, who are their main rivals going into 2026?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the evidence of testing, I mean, they're right at the back there, but I think they're probably ahead of Cadillac. I think they'll probably be ahead of Audi if they can get on top of this quite quickly. But for the moment, it looks like it's the back of the midfield, and that's not good enough for them. They were what were they, 7th last year? So they want to be up there. They want to be challenging for podiums and for titles. That's why Fernando is there. And if he doesn't get what he wants, then he might think, oh my God, right, well, what next? I do fear that we might be looking at a last year for Fernando Alonso if they don't get it right, because that he put all his eggs in this basket, and he's part of that dream team. And if the dream team doesn't click, then what? So watch this space on that one. But I think it's going to be, again, one of the key narratives. As I said, I think it's that's what I love. There's so many stories already. We haven't even started, and it's all speculation because we won't know till Melbourne qualify.
Yes. I have one more question for 2026. Is that okay? Okay. So the second Red Bull seat. We've asked this question.
The Widowmaker.
We've seen so many incredible drivers come through that seat and just not be able to succeed in that seat or get a handle or meet expectations or, line up to max. We saw the same thing with Yuki last year as well. So Isaac has got the seat. He knew that was the trajectory when he was in that Red Bull driver program. What are your thoughts about Isaac in that seat for this year? What does he have to do differently in order to actually hold on to that seat where so many others haven't been able to?
I mean, that's $1 million question, isn't it? And I don't know if anybody is equipped to give an explanation other than Max is just the best driver on the grid, bar none at the moment. You have to say that. Pound for pound, he is a generational talent, and he's at the peak of his powers. He can do anything in any car, any simulator, anything that he turns his hand to with a wheel, a steering wheel and 4 wheels, and probably 6 wheels. He'd probably do it, take him lawnmower racing, he'd win that as well. He's just a genius. And with the way that these cars are squirreling around already, I think we've seen his car control is second to none when he has really oversteery car. He doesn't mind that. He doesn't mind it. And he can nurse it round in a way that other people can't. I think he's also got his voodoo doll out, hasn't he? And he's used that on the second on the second Red Bull for the last few years. But it's been the same story every time. I think Isaac Hadjar is an incredible talent. He was my rookie of the year last year. I think for a first year, I think that Racing Bulls car was a very nice car to drive.
Yep.
Very drivable. We saw that because when Liam went back to it, okay, it took him a little bit of time, but then he started point scoring as well. So it was definitely an easier car to drive than the Red Bull. The question is, is he better than the rest that have gone before? I think it's as simple as that. And we'll find out. Will the new regulations mean that it's not as geared towards Max's driving style as the ones from the past set of regulations? I don't know. I think probably if you've got the best driver in the world, you're going to gear everything towards what he wants. Because if he doesn't win the championship this year, is he going to stay? I don't know. I mean, the way he started sounding, it sounds like, yes, he's paid millions and millions and millions, but if there's something else that interests him, if there's another series that he thinks is more fun to drive, would he trade it in for maybe a sabbatical from Formula One? I don't know. It's a huge talking point. What next for Max Verstappen if he's not enjoying it? But as I said, come Australia, if he wins, the smile will be back, probably.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it seems to be that he can hop in anything and win. And so, and on top of the fact that, he misses, he's sick and then miraculously can sim race. I think this regulations with all of the video game analysis that's needed to be successful, I think he might do okay.
I think he'll do okay.
I think anyone that thinks Max is going to get in a car and not do great, I mean,
it
might take him a minute to get up to speed.
He's got a very patient other half, hasn't he? Kelly's very patient. The amount that he goes off and just all he wants to do when he gets home is race on his sim and then go racing in GTs and stuff. So he's incredible, and I love Max. I think he's a breath of fresh air. By the way, I do. I love the way he talks. I love the way he just never pulls his punches. He just goes in. He's straight up honest. He'll tell you what he thinks, and
yeah,
stuff
he's the most American non-American out there. He's like that's why the Americans love him, is because he's just a straight shooter. He doesn't polish anything, and he just goes for it. Okay, so I have a question that I've wanted to ask the Sky team, because you guys get a lot of guff about the British bias.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. I was wondering why I've never felt it. And I think it's because we in America, Europe is just so much more tightly packed. And so in America, we look on and we're like, they talk about the drivers that are good, and those just happen to be Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris. I mean, you've got Ollie Behrman, George Russell, and then you kind of throw Albon in there because he flies under the tie flag. But I mean, he was pretty sure he was born in London. So I mean, how do you navigate that in a world that's kind of like screaming at you? Is it just become irritating noise after a while?
Do you know what? I honestly, I think it's complete. It's a clean podcast, right?
Yes.
It's just not true. What it is, is us. We have our principal market that we broadcast to, right, is the UK, and therefore 100%. There is an interest from our viewers in what the Brits are doing, and therefore we try to service them, but through no fault of our own, we are broadcasting to a number of countries now. I try to make it balanced. I genuinely do, because as I said to you, working in this job, I don't care who wins. I don't. Right. I love what I care about is how the story unfolds and telling the story and hoping that story is good and good for the sport and good for our viewers. Now, you watch the comments under here, it'll be, rubbish. It doesn't matter. It's just noise. It's like we want the story to be as good as it possibly can be. But it's quite simple.
That's good. We don't deal with the British bias, but what we do deal with is Formula One gatekeepers. So obviously, this is an American podcast with an American take, and the majority of the European comments that we get are, stick to turning left, keep going in circles. We had the wonderful Alex Brundle on, and the majority of the comments were like, Alex, you don't need these guys, which is true. He does not need us, but I don't think that's the point of him coming on the podcast. What do you say to the gatekeepers? What do you say to the quote unquote purists about a sport that is literally exploded? Like, it's 63% growth in America year over year. Like, it's nuts out here.
Yeah. We embrace it, right? There are, I think that's also one of the complexities of trying to broadcast to such a varied audience now. I mean, we get like insights on what our average viewer age and demographic is, but we know we are broadcasting to, let's say, a male in their mid-50s, right, that has loved it since the 1980s, right? And they want to see pure racing. They want to see V10s come back. I'd like to see V10s come back with sustainable fuels. That's what we would love. But then we're also broadcasting to the Drive to Survive generation, which is, skewed as much, more towards females than it is males. And that's, in the very lower age bracket. So you've got to cater for everything. And sometimes you're going to get things right. Sometimes, we try and learn all the time. And I think that's what we want, to make it as accessible and as understandable to everybody. If you are a 15-year-old girl who just loves Drive to Survive and wants to watch it now and is taking something from Formula One that is different to that 55-year-old male, then cool, but everyone's invited, and we want to try and do that. And that's why we try to morph our on-screen team. We try to represent everybody across the demographics. And hopefully we do an all right job of that.
Yeah. I think you do a great job of balancing the 50-year-old that desires to hear about the cornering speed and the 15-year-old who desires to see the speckles in Charles Leclerc's eyes. I think you do a good job of balancing.
We all want to see the speckles in Charles Leclerc's eyes. We all want to see those.
We do. I want to ask you a question real quick. So F1 teams obviously have weekends where things just don't go their way.
Oh my gosh.
So when it comes to like the Sky Sports team, have there been weekends where things are just not going your way on like a back end, a technical side, something's going awry? I mean, you guys are such a tight unit. You guys do such an incredible job. But over the years, has there been a moment where you're like, oh my God, something is not going right and we've got to adjust it in real time?
I mean, it's live sport, right? So anything can happen at any point. I mean, I've had it where the gallery has just gone in my ear. So usually I have 4 people talking in my ear. So you have the director, the producer, I've got my guests, but I've also got the PA who's counting me down to hit breaks and stuff like that. When you go completely blind and deaf, i.e. you've got no one in your ear, but somehow you're still broadcasting, you then just have to, you're relying on your floor manager, for example, being on the phone to somebody in the gallery saying, keep talking, or whatever that might be. that can be like, it's not terrifying anymore, but I just sort of, I've got a guest there. I'm just going to carry on talking until someone tells me to shut up. So I'll just kind of throw it to my guest and we'll keep on going. That's always your safety net in live TV, is that you've got people there. Keep talking. Yeah. It's not my problem. Someone eventually will get the message to me to go off air or whatever, or throw to somebody else. But until that moment happens, you just got to keep on pedaling.
I love it. I love it. I got one more follow-up question here. So you are in a role where you've got to interview drivers after they've had terrible days and after they've had really good days, right? But specifically for a driver who's just had an atrocious weekend, how do you balance asking like those hard but honest questions, but also knowing when to kind of like pull back? And is there a tension that you've got to navigate in those kind of moments?
I I sort of fall into the school of you got to be honest, and most of them are honest with themselves, unless they've got into an altercation on track where they feel like they've been slighted by another driver or by a decision that the stewards have made. Right, that's when it's tough. But under normal circumstances, they'll come out and they'll go, "Yeah, I was terrible today." That kind of stuff. So you can kind of have that honest conversation with them, and I don't think that that's a stretch from my perspective. I don't want to beat up on them because they'll be beating up on themselves. But also, if they're going to come into presentation now, usually they've been to see whoever the reporter is that's in the pen there, and they've been the ones that have had to take that on head to head. And usually, if they've had a bad day, all they want to do is leave. They don't want to come out and talk to me in presentation. So I've kind of got that little safety net now. So thanks to our intrepid reporters, because they have to handle most of that. But I might get a disgruntled team principal, and I can always tell. Like, I know when Toto is hacked off because I get very, very short answers, and you better have another question up your sleeve because it might be monosyllabic. But some of them. I will say Zach. I mean, they're all very honest. I think Zach and Andrea. I think that's been kind of a breath of fresh air to me, is the way that they've come out. They've been honest. They've stuck to their guns. And I think that's what they believe in. They want to be as super transparent as possible. And I think that was one of McLaren's strengths actually last year.
Yeah, agreed. I have a follow-up question to that. The having a question up your sleeve for someone that's being short. So in your role, you've presided over some pretty monumental moments. And I don't think I could sleep tonight without asking this question. In 2021, it went down, and then it cut down to you, and it cut to you, and you had to then talk about one of the most prolific F1 moments in history. Like, what do you do in that moment? Like, do you take a deep breath, or do you just open your mouth and hope words come out?
I did a book actually, and I keep coming back to that night because there were so many different people in different roles that were kind enough to talk to me about it. But I'll say this. As Crofty and Martin are talking over, actually, listen, I take my hat off to what they were doing in terms of commentating in real time, because it came back to me, and I think all I could say is, wow, controversial error. You at that point, you're like, well, okay, how are we going to unpick this? And it took, if you remember, it took like weeks to unpick. Now, Mercedes was so annoyed that they basically shut up shop. They were taking legal advice. They just went under. So we were getting nothing from them being fed into presentation. So then what we're doing is we've got people looking at the rule books, trying to work out, what happened, what rules were transgressed, what's going to happen next. And we went off air before anything really had been resolved or any conclusions had been made. All we know is that in hindsight, we know that there was a refereeing error, right? We know that Lewis should have finished under a safety car and Lewis should have won the championship. But also, the team principals had agreed that under as many circumstances as possible, it should finish under a green flag, just because. And for that to happen with so few laps remaining and the kind of everything aligned for that to happen, it did, but it was in a championship decider with a point between them, or wherever it was. It was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. And you've just got to reflect that confusion and then try and work out what's going on with the help of all of us around us. But that's when we all pull together as a team. And, you've got Crofty and Martin reading the rule book up in commentary. You've got Rosberg. He was talking to, I think it was Nico. Was it Nico? No, maybe it was Damon and Jensen. I think it was Damon. Can't remember now, so long ago. But all of the pundits on the floor trying to work out what's happening. Ted scuttling up to try and talk to other sporting directors to understand what was going on there. So team effort, but I'll never forget that night. As long as I live, that was the most difficult broadcast that any of us have ever had to do.
Wow. I mean, I want to jump in here real quick. So James and I are on different sides of that night, right? Like James historically has been a Mercedes fan. I, from the get-go, was a Max fan as he was coming up and trying to take it to Lewis. And so that season was a very interesting moment for the two of us. the way that I look at that, and I like how you framed it as a referee error, because in American sports, we are very familiar with referee errors. They happen all the time.
Yes.
There's so many sports now that have introduced automatic replay because of how referee errors have really made the decision between winning and losing for different teams in these high stakes moments. And so I think for me as an American sports fan, I had a framework to be like, oh yeah, that just happens. Like, and yeah, obviously the stakes are so high, but in a moment like that, with that much complexity, with that many laps winding down, the person at the top made a decision and everyone had to abide by that decision. But do you feel like that framework is a framework that is embraced, that legitimizes Max's win, to say, well, a decision was made, we gotta stick with it? Or do you feel like that's an asterisk next to Max's first title?
No, his name's on the trophy. You know, that's what happened. I mean, I think the one thing that I don't like about this is when people try to claim after the event, like what's going on. Like Max is still trying to work out what happened to him in 2008. And you have to crown a champion on the night that it occurs, not after a courtroom battle in the weeks and months hence. So yes, was the decision right after everyone went through everything? No, but it was a refereeing decision. There was also, you've got to remember, there was all the lobbying was going on too at that stage over, between team principals, talking directly to the race director. Same with sporting director. Jonathan Wheatley had a huge impact on that because he's a very clever sporting director who was doing his job correctly. But I hope that they've learned lessons from that night. We all hope that we don't want to see that again in terms of, but we're still talking about it. We're still talking about it 5 years later. And
sorry, I had to bring it up.
No, it's because it's epic drama, whichever way you look at it. You know, yes, if you're a Lewis fan, you're going to be annoyed again. I'm having to choose my words very carefully here because, as I said, no swearing on the Rolling Star. But he kind of, it's history now. It's there.
Yeah.
Mercedes were really affected by it internally. I think there were a lot of people that were very unhappy for a very long time, but they moved on. Yeah. And if they win a title this year, then
exactly. Yeah, we're Americans, so we're used to bad ref calls, and so it probably affected us a little bit less, but definitely a moment to remember. Okay, so it sounds like you talk about this in your book, Pressure. When does Pressure come out, and where can we get it?
Well, it's out now in hardback over here, so it's on Amazon and most major book shop websites, I think. But I think that the paperback is coming out in May, and I hope it will be available in the US as well. But it was just a way to. I interviewed like 35 people, maybe, and there's 27 roles in the book. And it's everyone from the kind of chefs to the performance coaches, the engineers, the logistics guys. And then I do George Russell from the driver's front, Zach Brown, a few of the team principals and everyone in between, because there's a lot of unsung heroes that, Drive to Survive. You get to hear from team principals and drivers, whereas this is about the whole show and how the ecosystem kind of thrives and what is needed to keep the show on the road. So I hope it's got something or a role for everyone, but it also probably highlights that if you're looking to try and get a career in Formula One, these are the stories of how these people got there. So I wanted to maybe shine a light on some of them. So hopefully I've done that.
That's awesome. Love it. Look forward to reading it. Well, we're gonna wrap this in just a moment, but before we do, we want to end with a little game, Simon.
Okay.
And this is what we call Most Likely to Sky Sports Edition. And so I'm gonna say most likely to statements, and then the only rule is we want you to give the first name on your Sky team that comes to mind when we say this. You can explain yourself if you want, but you are going to have to defend your reputation after.
This get me in trouble. This one.
We're not here to cause tension. Just Just a little bit. Okay,
Sure.
so here's the first one. Most likely to send a group text at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Naomi Schiff. Naomi is a night owl. I mean, she's always up. Like she loves, staying up and watching films. And yeah, that'll be Naomi. She'll send one.
Perfect. Most likely to forget they're live.
Ted's done that. He's done that. Yes. Or I think he was stitched up. But Ted has done that. Yeah.
Who's most likely to go viral for the wrong reason?
Oh God. Any self-noms here? I might have to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Just I try and God. Yeah, I've got to be careful. Put it that way.
It's you. Who's most likely to drop the coldest one-liner of the weekend?
Anthony Davidson. He's he's merciless when it comes to Crofty. I mean, we know Crofty quite well. We like to get under that skin with Crofty. But yeah, Davidson on Croft is one to watch.
Oh, that answers my next most likely to. See, I thought you were gonna say Rosberg. Rosberg's so funny because I feel like to us, he's a loose cannon. You never know what he's gonna say.
No, it depends on in which way you're doing that. On a grid walk, you are absolutely correct. Nico, he takes no prisoners. He'll go in hard, as Jos Verstappen found out.
So it sounds like you're most likely to roast Crofty mid-broadcast is...
Yeah, is Davidson, and then Rosberg to roast anybody else.
Okay, who's most likely to say, I probably shouldn't say this, but, and then go ahead and say it?
That is me. Again, sorry, I'm terrible like that. I've been known to take trusted information out of our production meeting and blurt it out on air, and then get annihilated by whoever it was that told me not to say that. So,
incredible.
Yeah.
Who's most likely to leak information on air?
Can I call the Croft out on that one? I might call the Croft out on that one because he just loves to talk, that man. He's never not in broadcast mode. So he'll, that's it. I mean, in terms of words per minute, wow. Yeah, he can do it.
Who's most likely to spot a floor upgrade?
At Ted. Because he's in there.
Ted.
Because he's
Who's
in
most
there
likely to he's in there in shorts. He's like the dad that everyone wants.
Yes.
Yeah. Weird dad. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's the one that causes like the awkward tension at the barbecue, but it's not a fun barbecue without him. You know?
Yeah.
Who's most likely to be right, but nobody listens to until Sunday?
Who's most likely to be right? No one listens to Sunday. I don't know. I would suggest that there's a few on our team that are right. That. I mean, we're all listening to Bundle all the time because he's the governor, right? So he's usually right. And when you hear what he has to say, my ears prick up, and then I need to know not to blurt it out on TV. But he might do it himself. He's very good. Got his ear close to the ground. By the way, I should also have said, blurting out information. I've completely forgotten about Chandok. Karun Chandok is a world-class gossip. I love him to bits, but you tell him anything, he will blurt it out.
Can't keep a secret.
Love Karun.
Okay. You've mentioned Karun. There's some drivers on the team. Who's most likely to jump in a car tomorrow and not embarrass themselves?
Jensen, because he's been doing it most recently, but I don't think any of them embarrass themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Karun still keeps his super license active.
Yeah. No, they're all extremely capable. I've sat in the passenger seat with most of them in GT cars, and I can tell you that they're all just trying to make me soil myself or whoever's in the passenger seat alongside, and they're very, very adept at almost doing that. Yeah, they're very skillful, all of them.
That's my last one. Is who's most likely to make you sick in a hot lap?
Well, I'm going to take that out of my team now. I'm going to say that perhaps best experience I've ever had in the 15 years doing this is a couple of years ago, Monaco, Thursday night, Fernando Alonso, and I was in the Aston Martin DB, whatever it was, next to him. It had just rained, And he,
God.
and he floors it off the line, does this a couple of times to assess the grip. He goes, "No much grip." and then takes me around this thing, and I honestly, it was incredible how close he gets to the walls, and he's brilliant. He's one of my heroes. Is Fernando. I think he's just an exceptional driver. I just love him, and he left nothing out there. Put it this way.
Amazing.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Simon, for coming on the Rolling Start. Really appreciate you. All that you do for Formula One, the whole world.
Yeah. Simon, you're one of the good ones. You are absolutely a joy to just see on screen, to hear the analysis, to see how you navigate the weekend. But yeah, absolutely loved having you on the show today.
Thanks guys. We'll
guys.
catch you in the next one.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.